or something if that happens automatically. Do you know? I know we're live right now. It doesn't matter. Do we need to send out a tweet?
I'll text you. All
right, cool. What's up, everybody? David Jones here with Bets by Ghost. Do you prefer just Ghost? I know you're at Bets by Ghost, but what do the people call you?
Yeah, people just call me Ghost. I just couldn't get that Twitter handle. Unfortunately, there was a Twitter account that their last tweet was from like 2010 or something, and it's just those accounts that don't get deleted, so I can never get the handle. But yeah, I had to go by Bets by Ghost.
Well, maybe we'll just win a bunch of money today, and you can just go buy it. That's the goal, right? I know people do that. Just slide in that guy's DMs and see if he'll answer. If he's not deceased, hopefully not. You there?
I was gonna say that sounds like a great plan until you hit me with that last part. I mean, hopefully that last part's not true.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I'm also very aware. I have a Dolphins hat on today, and I'm going to be drinking out of a Atlanta Falcons mug because I'm a big football guy. We're playing a lot of Dolphins here in Week 8. We're going to be talking about the DFS slate, DraftKings, FanDuel. Good tournament over on FanDuel if it hasn't filled. It was like that NBA contest opening night, top 40% get paid, and it's a GPP. So go max that thing out and play it like a cash game, essentially, if you haven't done it already and if it's not filled. But it's just me and Ghost today. Nick's out. Jay's coming down with something, but they're posting their bets. They're posting their plays on windailysports.com. Go sign up over there. Promo code SICKO, SICKO, SICKO for 50% off when you sign up. We're going to go through quarterbacks. We're going to go through running backs. We're going to go through wide receivers, tight ends. We'll give you our favorite plays of the day at the end of the show. I think we'll be answering questions throughout the way. Do you usually do that, Ghost, or is that a Nick thing?
Yeah, we could keep an eye on the comments and we'll pull up the questions. You're gonna have to pull up the questions just by clicking on it on your side of things. But I'll be sure to shout them out.
Professional show today. Yeah, we'll just probably talk through them because I'm not going to be typing in and responding. So keep watching the show. But overall, how are you feeling about the slate today?
Man, there's a lot of misprices, and it's not to call out one or the other. I mean, typically, more often than not, it's going to be FanDuel that ends up mispricing a couple guys, and they do have one very obvious one this week. But honestly, on both sides, pricing is very soft, especially with Miami getting Tua back under center and that offense. We're going to be able to talk about them a ton because that's where everybody is going, it seems like. So should be some really high scores today, but there are a lot of different ways to get different in tournaments to take it down.
Well, let me ask you this. Is the person you're referring to over on FanDuel that's mispriced, does that happen to be a tight end?
Yes, it does.
It is National Tight Ends Day as well. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we lock in George Kittle on the showdown slate. Going to try and take down another one of those. There'll be an article up later on for Win Daily Sports subs. But let's get into it with quarterback. Quarterback, to me, I don't know if I'm going to say the toughest position, but the least important position for me today. Like I wrote in the article, I know what running backs I'm using. I know what wide receivers. I know what tight ends I'm using. I know what defenses I'm using. And then I'm going to plug all those in, take a look and kind of put whatever quarterback makes the most sense with them. I mean, that's just how I'm going about it. I'll give you some names, but to me, I'm not like in love with any quarterback. And that's not something I usually say, but that happens to be the case. But I want to start with you there. Who are your guys to go to at quarterback?
I'm honestly on the same page. Like, there's nobody that I'm extremely overweight on compared to the field. There is one guy that, had to obviously make my main lineup, and that's where I planted my flag, and that's Caleb Williams. Being underpriced on both sides. I mean, I'll reference DraftKings here, but it's, relatively 1-to-1 to FanDuel also over there. Only 6K on DraftKings, man. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous, some of these prices. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been, on and off this year. Obviously, Jared Goff has been absolutely nuts. Kyler Murray has high ceiling games, and then you get into the Mahomes, Stroud, Hurts, Allen, Lamar range, etc. But there's no reason for Caleb Williams coming off a bye to be 6K against Washington. I mean, with Jaden Daniels playing, that game instantly becomes one of my favorites to attack to get different in tournaments.
Is Daniels confirmed in?
I mean, from what I'm seeing is that they elevated a quarterback to their active roster, and that, instantly made people think, oh, you know what, he's not going to play. But the last tweet that I saw from Schefter saying that Jaden Daniels should be good to go. barring a setback in pregame warmups, which we'll probably get. We'll get the news when we get it. Obviously, that being a late slate game might be a little bit tougher, but at the same time, he said barring a setback, you should be good to go.
Yeah, Commanders are optimistic about Jaden Daniels playing via Ian Rappaport. I'm with you on Caleb Williams, man. He's underpriced. He's been producing. He's got a healthy offense right now. He's playing the Commanders. Commanders have been bad against wide receivers, more so at the beginning of the year. They've kind of got it together under the Quinn defense over there recently. But I made the point on SiriusXM last night that where they tend to do okay is when you've got one alpha wide receiver and they can kind of focus in on that alpha wide receiver. I know that they're bad against wide receiver ones, but they're not the worst team on the slate against wide receiver ones. But when you've got three guys that you can attack them with, I think that's where they're going to struggle. And as long as Daniels can, look down the field, find the open man, Caleb Williams can look down the field, find the open man, then I think he should be set up for another one here. I mean, you've got the rookie battle going back and forth. We've been attacking Washington, the whole time. I know you can run on him too, but you can throw on him easier. So Caleb Williams, he's going to make a lot of sense for me. Two questions there. Does the rushing upside come into play for you? He's got, 56 yards last game on a long run, 23 yards, 34 the week before that. Hasn't run one in the end zone yet. Maybe we catch him sneaking one in today. That's the first question. Are you factoring that in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you get a guy that's that cheap on the pricing grid, it's just a cherry on top to be able to get rushing upside, right? Like when we usually go for rushing upside, we're talking about, the two guys that probably come to mind first are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and rightfully so. But those guys are always towards the top of the pricing grid, right? But when you end up getting rushing upside with Caleb Williams or even a guy like Kyler Murray, I'm not playing him on this slate, but even on other slates where we play Kyler Murray in that 6K range, it's extremely beneficial to get rushing upside when you're essentially punting the quarterback position.
Second question, as much as he can spread it around, and none of his wide receivers like really nuke the slate ever. I mean, he just kind of, gets people involved. 1 week it's the tight end, 1 week it's DJ Moore, 1 week maybe it's going to be Keenan Allen, Adunze. Would you consider playing Caleb Williams naked?
Yeah, absolutely. And, coming back to what you said earlier in the show, and you're like, hey, quarterbacks actually, it's not a traditional slate where usually we start with our quarterback to say, who are we going to stack? Like what are our stacking options with, XYZ quarterbacks? If we go with this guy, what does it look like? If we go with the other guy, what does it look like? And this is a slate where honestly, I had to remove my traditional rule of, stack with at least two guys or even one. Like there's some GBP lineups where I'm actually playing quarterbacks with just one stacking option. And that's what it is, right? Like I'm not forcing in that double stack with a run back every time, just because for me, there's so many underpriced skill position players on this slate. And we're going to talk about them mainly at the wide receiver position where, I read your article and I was like, yeah, on that guy. And I read through the entire board and I was like, okay, we're on 99% of the same guys. So for me, when you end up building reverse that way, where you're prioritizing these wide receivers, especially on DraftKings with a full point PPR format, quarterback for me, it's really just who's going to allow me to get the best skill position players today. So single stacking Caleb Williams, the guy that I have the most of is DJ Moore. In my opinion, that is the best matchup on paper and seems to be his number one guy. You could go Cole Kmet on National Tight End Day. Is coming off the 2-touchdown game, but at the same time, I think DJ Moore in a potential shootout game definitely has the upside to be able to, hit 80, 90, maybe even 100 yards today for that 3-point reception bonus on DraftKings.
A couple questions here in the chat. They're saying, would you start Ottencraft, Pitts, or Kmet? I bring it up because you just brought up Kmet. Kmet is someone I'm probably not going to chase with the pricing today, but look, if you want to stack or double stack with Caleb Williams, I guess I'm not going to talk you out of it, but he's not he's just not someone high on my list. Maybe he's high on Ghost list. And then another question from Isaiah, any worry Caleb looked good the last 4 games and they were playing worse defenses. They were playing bad defenses. I don't know if I can say they're all worse than Washington, even though Washington's been a little bit better. He played Jacksonville, Carolina, the Rams with a lot of injuries, and the Colts. I mean, yeah, they're not great defenses at all. It's a fair point, but neither is Washington. Other quarterbacks that we can talk about here, again, like Nothing. I just absolutely love the spend up guys like Lamar. Look, he puts on a show every single week. What's the game script going to be in Cleveland? Do they just force it with the run the fourth quarter? Probably. I mean, you land on Lamar, like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not circling him. Jalen Hurts is interesting to me in what could be a potential shootout against the Bengals. The Bengals are really bad at containing quarterbacks, especially scrambling quarterbacks. And A.J. Brown has one of my favorite matchups that I've seen the entire season. So I think last week was the Saquon game, even though that Saquon only scored one touchdown and like 140 yards, whatever he did. He should have got 3, but when the tush push works, the tush push works fine. Jalen Hurts in a good matchup, in my opinion. If you can spend up to get him, but I'm spending up at wide receivers. Jordan Love's okay. Burrow's okay. We're still waiting on some T. Higgins news, I believe. Have you seen anything on that?
From what I'm reading, because I actually have a lot of T. Higgins in my season-long leagues, and from what I'm reading, it's a quote uphill battle for T. Higgins to play today. So it's not looking good right now. Probably see Yoshi get more snaps, more looks there. Maybe Mike Gesicki, but it's really the Jamar Chase show, and I'll let you talk about that matchup because I know that was one of the ones that you highlighted in your article, and that's one that we're both on. But I'm pretty sure. Actually, as you mentioned it, I'm pretty sure I just saw the tweet that Higgins got ruled out. I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay, I'll pull it up too. Look, the one guy we do need to talk about a little bit is Jameis Winston. T. Higgins will be inactive today. So Jameis Winston, he's cheap, 5,100 over on DraftKings, allows you to get a lot. Look, he's going to be playing better than Deshaun Watson. He just has to. Anyone can play better than Deshaun Watson. We know he's a guy that's going to go out there and throw it, and everyone talks about that one season 3 years ago where he had a lot of interceptions. Those don't hurt you in DFS. All quarterbacks get interceptions. It doesn't matter. You can pair him up with your cheap wide receivers. You can pair him up with David Njoku, who's in a fantastic spot. I don't think he's going to go out there and, throw 3 touchdowns. I mean, I need the dude to get over 200 yards and hopefully get 2. You do have Nick Chubb back, who should get more work than his 38% snap share last week. So maybe they have to respect that a little bit more if Nick Chubb can get it going. He's also got a pass catcher out of the backfield that he can throw it to. So I don't love Jameis Winston, but I'm going to have him on one of my main lineups solely because of the price and the defense that he's going up against. Honestly, like, you've got 2 corners missing for the Ravens. Marlon Humphrey was doubtful last night. I didn't look today, but I'm pretty sure he's not playing. So the slot gets a lot better for whoever he's throwing it to there, which is going to be old Jet. What's his name? Everyone used to love and realize he wasn't any good.
Elijah Moore.
And then you've got Tillman, who's going to run, I'm talking about all over the field. Like, if you look at the routes that he ran last week, he was absolutely everywhere. So you can pair him up with either of those 2 guys. No one's talking about Moore, even though he had went 6 of 7 last week, because everyone's talking about Tillman. They go look at the price. He's cheaper. They go look at the targets. It was Moore. But Moore's matchup got incrementally better when Marlon Humphrey got ruled out. So maybe he can make a splash today. I think he's a good large field GPP pivot. But when you do that, you're moving off of Tillman. You're moving off of the Tampa Bay receivers. They're all cheaper than him. And honestly, they're better plays. But I think you can take a shot on Moore if you want to. Any thoughts on Jameis Winston?
I mean, look, if ever there's a time to play him against the Ravens just on paper like that, it would be a week like this where there's no Marlon Humphrey, no Rasheen Ali. And I apologize to all the Ravens fans listening out there for bringing this up, because in the last couple of years, it's been really tough where they've had so many injuries to their DBs to the point where, it was very possible that they were not making Super Bowls in these Lamar MVP years because they had 3, 4, 5 defensive backs injured. Like, it wasn't just Marlon Humphrey. It was they're down to their practice squad guys in massive playoff games, right? So, I mean, when we saw that happen, their blitz rate dropped tremendously. So when you're ending up seeing Jameis Winston being able to sling it down your field, the main thing that you're concerned about is Baltimore going to be able to get to him? With Marlon Humphrey out and Rasheen Ali out, I think they're not going to blitz as frequently as they do. At least that's what they've shown when they've had all these defensive back injuries. And Jameis in the pocket with time is going to be able to sling it down there, man. And this is a matchup where if the entire Baltimore defense was healthy, I wouldn't be playing Jameis Winston, and I would not play David Njoku either. But in a matchup where they won't need David Njoku to block because, again, I'm relying on the fact that their blitz rate's going to drop a little bit this week compared to previous. David Njoku makes for an enticing target too, deep down the field there for Jameis.
We've got some questions here. Would you start Caleb or Burrow in fantasy? I do like Burrow, but I would start Caleb over Burrow today, especially with no Higgins.
Yeah.
Do we like Aaron Rodgers today? Not particularly.
No.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to running backs. I mean, again, like quarterback isn't the position I'm really flag planning. We talked about the two guys I'll probably have the most of. Spin ups are fine. Already did it. Running back, let's get into it. A lot of chalk today, but it is good chalk. There are underpriced running backs everywhere. I'm going to start with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is overpriced on FanDuel. DraftKings, he is underpriced. If you're playing on FanDuel, you're like, oh, I like Kareem Hunt. He's getting the touches. He's getting the work. 52 touches the past 2 games, including receptions. Just go over to DraftKings and play him because he's cheaper over there. That's what I would do. Raiders allow the 5th most fantasy points to running backs in the league. Hunt has been a volume monster the past 2 weeks. I just mentioned that. 20 DK points the past 2 games against 49ers and Saints. Saints have been a sieve. 49ers are better, but the Raiders are terrible. Chiefs revenge on whatever the Mahomes Kermit puppet. Who cares? That's not a real thing, especially if you don't have the wide receivers like Mahomes is obviously struggling right now. They got D-Hop, who's also a good play. Kelsey, National Tight End Day, also a good play. Kareem Hunt can also catch passes. He is... Look, I've got like 4 guys I love over on DraftKings, but he's one of the top guys. You need to get some Kareem Hunt in your lineups. How do you feel on Hunt? Are you on him too?
I am on DraftKings. Look, we'll talk about cash versus GPP implications to the end of the show when we start naming our top guys. But for me, Kareem Hunt is a guy that I'm playing in all formats. Whether his ownership is high enough or not to warrant cash consideration. It really depends on you guys when you're building your lineups. If you want to go Devon A-Chain, if you want to go Breece Hall, who seems to be the most popular player on the entire slate. You can only play so many of these running backs. Javonte Williams, we're going to talk about in a little bit here. But for me, Kareem Hunt is the guy that I'm playing on DraftKings in every format possible today.
Breece Hall's the most popular running back?
As of right now, yeah.
Did not know that. How do you feel about him?
I'm off it.
Me too.
I'm not playing a New York Jet as much. Like I haven't played a New York Jet in fantasy or DFS in many years because I just never know what's going on with them, like at all. I never know what's going on. I can't do it. I just can't do it. So one game he has 10 touches, the next game he has 20, and I get it. People are going to say, yeah, but look what he did against New England last time. That's if that's what's basing your decision to play the most popular player on the slate, I'm not going to stop you. But for me, I can't stomach that with so many good plays. I'm not just going to walk into automatically clicking the chalkiest player on the entire slate in tournaments.
Against New England last time, 16 carries, 54 yards, 29 receiving yards, and a fumble, but he also got a rushing touchdown. Last week against Pittsburgh, look, he's looked great. Like, he looks great, obviously, even though he should have housed one against Buffalo. I think it was Buffalo a couple weeks ago.
That was bad.
That was bad. But it was a great run. Like, I can't really say it's bad. It's just like, come on, get a little shifty down there inside the 5.
Yeah.
But he's not going to go for 103 receiving yards again. And with the value at running back, I'm not going to have him. I don't have him.
No.
What other running backs are you looking at here?
Javonte Williams, look, and anybody that's been listening to the show for a couple of years now, you guys know it takes a lot for me to play Javonte Williams. Sean Payton is a goldmine for running backs in the fantasy space, and Javonte Williams seems to have fended off the preseason hype of other running backs coming in, McLaughlin coming in. Then they cut Pirine and they're like, oh, Javonte's there. But then they drafted running back and it was all over the place. But look, this is Javonte's backfield for right now. The snap count is there. The touches are there in a matchup that, I mean, poor Bryce Young is walking into, I guess you could call it a second chance. And he's facing one of the top defenses in the league without his 2 top wide receivers on the road. I mean, on the flip side for Javonte Williams, you're at home, 11-point favorites. For me, it's going to be a 20-touch game for Javonte Williams. I'm expecting 20 touches, 100 yards, and at least 1 touchdown for Javonte at 6K on DraftKings for me. That's going to be an auto click.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like pairing him up with the Broncos defense is almost a cheat code. I don't think Carolina scores a touchdown today, and they're
I
gonna have
don't
to
think so either.
they're gonna have to give up on getting field goals at some point, right? I mean, the Denver Broncos defense is so elite today. Carolina is the worst team in the league against the run. I mean, everyone knows that they've allowed 12 rushing touchdowns in just 7 weeks, 32nd in DVOA against the run, most fantasy points allowed, most, I want to say rush. Let me see. I had some other stats. I can't see it. I can't find it. It's a great match. We know that for Javonte Williams. So these mid-priced to low-priced running backs is where we're going to live. We need to talk about Achane and Rashad White. But any Bucky Irving news you've seen drop? Sorry, I keep throwing this on you. I bet you missed it
No,
all.
I haven't seen an update. He is expected to play. I haven't seen an update on snap counts or anything of the sort. You know, they did after that Sean Tucker explosion game. They were saying, oh, you know, they're just gonna ride the hot hand, this and that. I mean,
Mhm.
like I'll let you talk about Rashad White. I don't want to steal your thunder because we both had the exact same mindset
Mm.
there. But yeah, Rashad White should have the green light to do exactly what you're about to talk about here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like the coaches were lying about riding the hot hand. Rashad White had the hot hand, so they kept riding him. I mean, it's pretty simple in my mind. So uh, the matchup for him against the Falcons, it's not the best. It's kind of mid-tier. It's fine. It's good, but there's no Mike Evans, no Godwin. White was heavily involved in the pass game last week, and that, Godwin went down at the end of the game. White had 2 receiving touchdowns. Is that something he's going to duplicate? Probably not, but is he going to be the second or third most reliable receiving option in this game today in an NFC battle where the Buccaneers have to win or the Falcons are going to win the NFC South? They're probably going to win it anyways. You don't want to win it with injuries. I'm a Falcons fan, even though I've got a Dolphins hat on. I'm too a fan. But that's just where we're at. You've got the Falcons 19th in run against, ranked 19th against the run, allow the 11th most receptions to RBs. That's pretty good for what White's going to do at his price tag. I can't fucking talk. Price tag over on DraftKings. It's too cheap. It's too cheap. They're going to try and establish the run. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, then they're going to have to throw the ball. Is McMillan going to be open? I mean, he's going to get shoved the ball by Mayfield. So is Shepard. So is Palmer. So is Otten. They're all going to be in play. They're all underpriced. But Rashad White, someone who might run the ball, I don't know, let's call it 12 to 17 times, depends on if he gets hot or not, catch another 5 or 6 balls. That's really good at his price tag over on DraftKings, 5,700. So give me Rashad White. If Bucky Irving is ruled out, I do think that Sean Tucker could be a thing. I have him projected for like almost 10 touches if Bucky Irving is out, but I don't know that that's enough at his price tag of 5K. He's going to have an explosive run, which he's shown he's capable of doing. But Rashad White's the dude for me there. Like, you got to play him. He's too cheap.
He is.
Yeah.
And we saw it last year, right? Like he almost was a poor man's Alvin Kamara type role, right? Where it was a guy that could handle the bulk of the carries, and he wasn't a 4, 5, 6 yards per carry type of guy, explosive runner, Saquon, Derrick Henry, anything like that. It wasn't anything crazy, but he was efficient with what he was good at, and that's catching the football and finding open space, right? So I'm expecting Tampa to really stretch the field with Jaylen McMillan. Both of us are big Jaylen McMillan fans. I'm expecting them to stretch the field with Jaylen McMillan and Trey Palmer, keep their 3 wide receiver sets, and then those underneath looks for Sterling Shepard, Otten, and Rashad White are really where it's at for me today. I would love for Dylan McMillan to have a breakout game. Um, I really do hope it happens. But at the same time, if he's stretching the field and Trey Palmer's got some sneaky speed too, man, like the middle of the field's going to be open for Otten, Rashad White, and Sterling Shepard there.
I agree. Those are my 3 favorite Tampa Bay Bucks. McMillan has cost me a couple of times this year. If he would have caught that touchdown last week, I would have finished top 3 in that Millie Maker. Really pisses me off. And it was so there for him too. It was so there. We have a question. Achane or Javonte Williams to you, or both? I mean,
I'm cool with playing both. I'm gonna end the running back segment with one guy in that range just to, add a little fuel to the fire to just not even answer this question directly, but also add a third name in there. But look, I'm cool with playing both. Those three guys are all really close in price where I would just, if you're cool with it, I would just duplicate that lineup and rotate A-Chain, Kareem Hunt, and Javonte Williams. They're all within $300 of one another on DraftKings. That's personally what I would do. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do too. If this happens to be a season-long question, I don't know. I mean,
I think the upside's there for A-Chain. If it's a season, like it also depends on the type of contest you're playing, right? If you're going for ceiling and it's a GPP tournament where the payout structure is really top heavy and you need massive ceiling games out of guys, A-Chain's going to have on any given slate, he's going to have one of the highest ceilings at the running back position, right? We know what he could do on the ground. We know what he could do in the passing game, and especially with Miami, especially not having a wide receiver 3. We've seen what Jonu's done with Tyler Huntley, but he wasn't really doing it there with Tua. So
yep.
Mike McDaniel doesn't really like scheming up plays for his tight end over the last couple of years. So Devon Achane's pretty much been operating as their wide receiver 3. He's actually run some routes out of the slot too. So if you're chasing really high upside, whether it be season long because you think you're gonna lose your matchup or you're projected to be down a couple points, whatever, I would go A-Chain. If it's more of like a cash game format or a home league type thing where you just want you're looking for a safety net, I think Javonte Williams has a safer floor, but Devon Achain has arguably double the ceiling that Javonte does.
Okay, so double the ceiling. He's saying it's a 20-player contest, winner takes all, ballsy. So I guess
I would
there.
I would go A-Chain there. If it's a winner take all, I would go A-Chain.
All right, C is in the chat. Bucky is active. Travis Etienne is inactive for everyone that wants to know. The other people that kind of round out my list, and I'll just spit out some names here, and you can tell me, if this is the guy that you were alluding to in that range. It's not all that range, but Derrick Henry, obviously fine. Kenneth Walker, obviously been really good. No DK Metcalf. Expecting rain in that game. Sometimes heavy, sometimes not. Wind increasing throughout the game. Walker's been great. I just don't find myself paying up there. Okay. Joe Mixon, obviously been great. Pretty good matchup against the Colts. Go for it. J.K. Dobbins and Chase Brown rounded out for me. Dobbins getting the matchup against the New Orleans Saints. Don't hate that. Saints have been really terrible. They used to be really, really good against the run. Now they're really, really bad. So you can go with Dobbins if you want to. Any of those names, the guy that you were alluding to?
No, it is
Who
not.
you got?
I got David Montgomery in a game where the Lions should be able to very easily control this one at home against Mason Rudolph and the Titans. No Jameson Williams. I think they really rely on the ground game 1-2 punch of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. 6,400 on DraftKings. I get it. Much better on FanDuel where it's half point PPR and touchdowns reign king on FanDuel. So I saw an earlier question in there. Someone's like, oh, Kareem Hunt's overpriced on FanDuel. David Montgomery would be a guy that you could pivot to. He's actually cheaper than Kareem Hunt over on FanDuel. But even 6,400 on DraftKings, I get it. He's not going to catch a ton of footballs. But at the same time, I could easily see Monty going for 100 yards and getting in the box once, if not twice today, in a matchup that would it really surprise me if the Lions win this one by 3 scores? None in the least, man. I could see that happening all day long. This offense is just too good. Even with Jameson Williams out for 2 games, they got Laporta, they got Amon-Ra. Khalif Raymond's been coming on strong the last 2 games. They're able to stretch the field. They got the 1-2 punch in that backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery at home. This team seems poised to make a really deep run, and I'm hoping they could figure it out on the defensive side of the football to replace Aiden Hutchinson, who's, you can't really replace him, but you got to figure something out there in the trade, whether it be trading for Max Crosby or what. But this team seems poised to make a Super Bowl run, and relying on that backfield today is something that I'm relying on in my lineups.
Yeah, they do look poised to make a run. We didn't mention Jared Goff. He is underpriced today too. Just
and easy to stack too. If you're paying up for wide receivers, especially with T. Higgins out, most people will go to Jamar Chase, and rightfully so. I'll let you talk about that matchup in our wide receiver segment. But it makes for an interesting pivot. Is it a better play or not? That's up for you guys to decide. But with Jameson Williams out, Sam Laporta, not having the season that everyone was expecting him to have. Amon-Ra being right there, sandwiched between AJ Brown and Jamar Chase, makes for a really interesting tournament play.
It does. We have some updates on actives, inactives. Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins out. Ravens wide receiver Zay Flowers is playing. Will Levis out, fired. Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill playing. Falcon safety Justin Simmons out. Packers D-line, Quay Walker's out. Jaguars RB Travis Etienne is out. That's from Ian Rappaport. We have to move on to wide receivers here. Question of the day is Tyreek Hill over on DraftKings, 7K, dumb pricing. Good for us. I'm not fading that chalk, buddy. I'm loading that up. I'm wearing the hat. I'm playing Tyreek today. And you don't need me to break down the matchup. It's Tyreek Hill with Tua back. Matchup's good anyways. I haven't seen him this cheap in, I don't know, since 2020. Like what are we doing here? I know what we're doing. They messed up the pricing because the quarterback playing, because he hasn't been hitting his props, and because nobody's been playing him. And when nobody plays him and he doesn't have good games, that's what the algo tells you to do over at DraftKings. It's not like someone's sitting there making the price for all these guys. It's an algorithm. That's what happens. So Tyreek Hill, I'm locking him in, dude. Are you with me?
Absolutely. I don't care. Like, I'm not a big chalk guy in tournaments. But that's one where, we spoke about ceiling and that type of conversation with Devon A-Chain. I don't know if there's a player in that price, like point per dollar. There's no player on the slate with a higher ceiling than Tyreek Hill. So I will not be fitting that by any means. I don't care if he's 30, 40, 50% owned. I just don't care. I'm playing him everywhere.
I don't care either. You had mentioned Jamar Chase, giving me an opportunity to talk about it. There's not much to talk about there. You're going up against the Eagles, the worst team against the wide receiver one in the league. And now there's no T. Higgins. Where do you think the ball is going to go? Chase averages most fantasy points in the league, tied with Chris Godwin. So there's that. So you've got the best fantasy wide receiver in the league that's not injured, going up against a team that's the worst against the wide receiver one. So, go ahead and play Jamar Chase and take your points and move on, which you can easily do today. Is he going to score the most points on the slate? Jamar Chase? Yes, Jamar Chase scores the most points on the slate today. He's my top guy. Him and Reek. What do you think?
I am always behind a Go Tiger stack of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I think you could single stack, but again, we're talking about single stacking quarterbacks and just kind of building your lineup the other way around this week. That would be the perfect one, where if you're starting to line up with Tyreek and Jamar Chase, which is more than doable. That's what I have in cash games right now. So it's more than doable in tournaments as well, with all these value plays that are out there, whether it be in Tampa, whether it be in Cleveland, whether it be, you can name 5 or 6 teams that have really good value plays out there because the pricing is really soft. All these 5.5 to 6.5K running backs that we're able to play. To me, it's starting your lineup for Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill. You're essentially starting right off the bat with 40 DraftKings points, if not more.
That is correct. All right, talk us through some of your wide receivers here. We're kind of running out of time, but we'll get through it. We'll stay on long if we need to. Where are you going for other guys at wide receiver?
Yeah, I'll burn through them. I mean, look, on the flip side of that game, we'll stay in Philly and Cincy because it's one of my favorite tournament games to stack. I do like AJ Brown a ton. I also think it's a get right spot for Devonta Smith, being able to find the middle of the field, especially with no Dallas Goedert. I do think the Eagles continue to run the football. They got to keep Joe Burrow and that offense off the field. That's how you essentially beat Cincinnati. But again, they got to get Kellen Moore to call these plays, man. I'm so tired of Sirianni calling the plays, and I know we got a lot of Philly guys on staff, so I apologize if that is not the way you guys see it. But to me, Sirianni should just relinquish all play calling duties to Kellen Moore, and you would see Philadelphia be putting up 45 points per game with the players that they have there. I do think Devon Smith has a get right game, especially with Dallas Goedert being out. All the middle of the field routes, especially out of the slot, great matchup for Devonta Smith there. If you can't pay up for AJ Brown. I'll let you talk about JSN. I am JSN over Tyler Lockett today, but either way, I'm cool with getting a piece of Seattle. Very sneaky game to stack. I'll mention that towards the end of the show, but just because I don't want to ramble on for 20 minutes about one game. But very, very sneaky game to stack, especially if you're playing a late only slate. If it doesn't crack your main lineup, anything like that, I can't fault you with Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase and all these guys that we're talking about that you could easily play. You're not going to pass up one of them to go play JSN or Tyler Lockett with Geno Smith. But at the same time, if you're playing a late only slate, tremendous game to stack there. And I'll talk about a little bit of a betting edge in that one that I think is a little bit fishy. Everyone talking Tyreek, rightfully so. Jalen Waddle, PPR machine, only 5,400 on DraftKings. That would be like the equivalent of getting prime Keenan Allen at 5,400. If he goes 6, 7, 8 catches for 100 yards and you're expecting Arizona to keep pace in this game, you don't even need him to score a touchdown to pay off at that price point. So makes for an interesting target. I'll let you talk about JSN. Like I said, also DeAndre Hopkins. I don't want to stick your thunder on either one of those guys. And my punt play, I will be, unfortunately, PTSD for both of us because this guy should have made us both millionaires by now. But I will be playing Jaylen McMillan over Cedric Tillman at the exact same price point.
They're different. They're different price points.
Are they on DraftKings? Yeah. I thought they were both at 3,700.
Tillman's 33, I think.
Tillman's 33. Okay, so I mean, look, I'm gonna find the extra $400, whether it be with a defense or anything like that. I'll find the $400, and I will be playing Jaylen McMillan over Cedric Tillman as my punt play. But large in part, that's really where I'm going. For the FanDuel guys out there, very easy to get 3 elite wide receivers. Just play 4K Dalton Kincaid that we'll talk about when we get to tight ends in a couple of minutes here, but very easy to play any wide receivers you want over on FanDuel this week.
That is true. Someone in the chat's asking if Franklin for Denver's a sneaky play over there. I don't think you needed to go there today. That's not the game script for wide receivers, in my opinion, and there's too much other value. I do think he's a good wide receiver, and I think he stands out in that offense a little bit, but I'm not going to do it personally. Yeah. So, the guys JSN, you talked about, I'm on him. I don't love the weather thing. I'm a big weather snob, and I get scared when you've got these weather games. Having said that, it hasn't mattered a single bit this season. So look, if you're looking at who's going to benefit the most with Metcalf out, obviously Lockett and JSN are going to benefit the most, but JSN's going to get the slot routes. Bills are bad against the slot. Taron Johnson allows a high yard per route covered, and JSN's underpriced. So you can go to JSN there, no problem at all. Underpriced, I'm getting scared because of the weather. As far as DeAndre Hopkins goes, you shouted him out too. He's $4,700. I mean, going up against the Raiders. Yes, he's going to be involved. Yes, he's the main target. Worthy might get in the mix. Kelsey obviously is. Hunt obviously is. But it's not they pulled over DeAndre Hopkins to throw it to him twice. Like Hopkins, $4,700. It's way too cheap. He'll exceed value. But the question is, will he exceed value enough to make you a lot of money today? Probably depends on the rest of your builds. Like it's going to be, a good thing for him. He doesn't need to know the playbook. Like that doesn't matter when you're a vet like DeAndre Hopkins. Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. People talk about that too much. He's going to be just fine. And I made a point too in the article that the 2 guys that got moved last week before the FanDuel slate, and Amari Cooper and Davante Adams, were on the Millie Maker winner over on FanDuel because they were underpriced, got moved to a better situation for them. I know Adams didn't have a good game, but he was on the Millie Maker. Amari Cooper caught a touchdown. He was on the Millie Maker. So maybe DeAndre 4,700 for Patrick Mahomes. Like that, he's not going to be that price last week. You've seen the end of 4,700 DeAndre Hopkins after this week. So you can play him, no problem. Also, I think Cooper's in a good spot more so on DraftKings than over on FanDuel where he has been priced up appropriately. We have to talk about the Tampa Bay wide receivers and the Browns value, and we have to do it quick. So I'll just keep rambling and then you jump in whenever you want. Shepard, I made the point on SiriusXM last night. I think the wide receiver that's most likely to score a touchdown would be Sterling Shepard. I think the wide receiver most likely to get the most yards and most targets maybe is McMillan. I'll give McMillan the yards, and Trey Palmer is just going to be a wild card, but he's going to be out there just as much as the other guys. And Baker's going to throw it to whoever he thinks open. Like he's still going to sling it. I even made the point that I don't think he's the worst GPP play, Baker Mayfield. I mean, I know there's no Evans. I know there's no Godwin, but he's still got guys he's throwing it to, and he's underpriced. He was an MVP candidate. He's breaking 30 pretty constantly. Like, he throws 2 touchdowns at that price with no one playing him. I think it's okay. Like, am I going to spend $4,000 on Baker Mayfield lineups? No. Well, I maybe throw him in a $20 milli maker, maybe. But yeah, it's tough. McMillan, Shepard, like, they're close to me. Palmer is going to be lower owned because no one, has been talking about him all week, and I get why. You have a McMillan over Shepard?
I got but that's just pure bias. That's not me using my brain. That's me using my heart. Just a big Jaylen McMillan guy from the Washington days. I mean, again, look, I alluded to it earlier, where it's Jaylen McMillan's going to be the guy stretching the field, right? Like, Tampa Bay will continue running 3 wide receiver sets. They're not going to change their playbook. They don't even have the personnel to change their playbook. They don't run, 2 tight end sets, all that. Like, they don't do things like that. It's constantly 3 wide receivers out there with Godwin and Mike Evans when they're healthy. And unfortunately, both of them are out this week. Godwin done for the year. Mike Evans gone probably until at least week 11. I mean, they're gonna. It's just next man up mentality, right?
Yeah.
So for me, Jaylen McMillan's the guy that's going to be able to stretch the field. The middle of the field is going to be wide open for Otton, Shepard, and Rashad White. Check downs and everything like that. But would it really surprise me to see Baker go out there absolutely slinging it at
No.
home with no Justin Simmons covering the deep ball? Like, that's an injury that we do have to highlight. It completely changes their zone coverage, right? Like, for Jaylen McMillan to be able to find those soft spots, it would not surprise me in the least to see Baker go out there and just say, you know what, I'm gonna go throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns today and just throw deep balls all game long.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, especially if the game goes like we think it does. Remember, Kirk Cousins broke the Falcons franchise record last time they played, threw for 505 yards. What if the Falcons happen to get up 2 touchdowns, and now Baker's like, guess like we saw in the last 5 minutes of last game. It's just like, okay, all right, we lost Evans. Okay, I'm just going to start slinging it to Godwin and McMillan and Otton. Okay, we lose Godwin, McMillan, here it comes. Shepard, here it comes. Otton, here it comes. Just pass, 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 pass. So if Baker Mayfield's out there just throwing it, Baker Mayfield's good. So yeah, cool. Yes, no, Cedric, Tillman, Elijah Moore. Where you at? You like McMillan more than Tillman, but are you mixing in either of these guys?
I don't Tillman. My issue is if I'm play a K wide receiver, which I don't really even feel the need all that much to do it on this slate. I mean, there's guys that are cheap enough at the running back position where I could get Jamar Chase, and tight ends are cheap this week too. Like, you could get your value plays at different positions, not only just wide receiver. But if I'm playing a punt in my lineup to really load up on these studs that we talked about, I'd rather not play a 20% on Cedric Tillman, where it's that if Jameis goes out there and just goes 30 and 30 Jameis type thing, where he's throwing a pick every second possession, like, that's where, I know for a fact Jaylen McMillan's going to be out there for close to, if not 100% of the offensive snaps in a game where they're at home. He's got a good quarterback, an MVP candidate, like you were saying. They're going to sling the football. This game's going to shoot out. For me, it's it's a really big game for Tampa too if they want to be able to hold on to the division, right? Like, that's more of a scenario type play for me, where I'd rather play McMillan over Cedric Tillman. Is Cedric Tillman a bad play? Absolutely not. I mean, he's got burners on him too. Jameis is going to be able to find him on a deep ball. The question is, is it going to connect, right? Like, that's where you could get burned. Is it both of them are going to run similar route trees. Jaylen McMillan, a little bit of a better route runner in my opinion, but similar plays in terms of impact on DFS and fantasy sports, where it's that, for them to do serious damage today, they're going to have to catch a deep ball. It's just going to come down to you guys when you're building your lineups. Do you trust the game environment of Cleveland likely playing from behind as of the first possession? Or do you think that Baker's going to go out there at home and sling it and find Jaylen McMillan with no Justin Simmons back there in a deep zone? It really depends who's going to catch that deep ball to be able to make a difference. I honestly think that's what it's going to come down to. I'm taking on it's sad to say because I love Jameis. I mean, the guy's hilarious, but I will take the better quarterback at home against the worst defense with no Justin Simmons and say Jaylen McMillan over Cedric Tillman.
I saw a quote this week. I don't know if it was real or not. It sounded real. I think it was one of the linemen for the Browns. It was like when Jameis Wilson's calling a play in the huddle, it sounds like he's telling you a surprise. And I can definitely see that. He grew up like 5 minutes from me. I think he grew up in Bessemer. I was in Hoover. Our neighborhood went into Bessemer. And I remember he's really good friends with one of the guys I grew up with. And when he got drafted, one of my buddies was like on the draft show with him. It was cool. And still in the league. It's been a long time for Winston in the league. There's more names to talk about under wide receiver, but you got to go Early Sports and sign up. We're not giving it all out for free. So we're going to move on to tight end. You've been teasing tight end this entire time. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off? You have a FanDuel play. You can tell us if it converts over to DraftKings.
I didn't notice until I went looking for this guy because I was trying to get exposure to that game. And I was like, you know what? Tight end, it's National Tight End Day. Let me see what Dalton Kincaid is priced at. And he's stone cold minimum.
Yeah.
There are guys that are on IR that are more expensive than Dalton Kincaid. So if you're playing over on FanDuel, it's pretty much what you were alluding to with 5K Puka Nakua on that showdown. We didn't care if he was playing 2 snaps, 20 snaps, blocking twice, catching 2 footballs. We didn't care. It was 5K Puka Nakua. You got to play him. To me, that's what it is. Whether Hurricane, I don't really care. Josh Allen only plays one half. I don't really care what the situation is. It's 4K Dalton Kincaid. You have to play him. It just opens up everything that you want in the rest of your lineup. You know what I mean? So even if the guy throws up a 0, which he won't, it still allows you to get Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill all in the same lineup with 2 elite running backs, with an elite defense. Like, you're playing a min-price tight end. That's a top receiving option on his team. You have to do it on FanDuel.
You have to do it on FanDuel. I agree. It's way too cheap. I mean, over on DraftKings, I'm playing Cade Otton. That's no surprise. It's just Tucker Kraft from week 5. He's going to be 50% owned in the big stuff. Doesn't matter. You're probably still going to have him. I'm playing him. David Njoku, people are on this week. I get it. Obviously, he's a fine play. Go get him. Brock Bowers is just going, nuts every single week. They're going to be trailing. They've moved Brock Bowers all over the field. He's only got 1 touchdown on the season. If he gets another touchdown and 10 catches, you're going to want to have him. And then you can take a shot on Noah Fant. Kevin Adams sent me a cool little tidbit about Fant, saying that he's caught the last 21 passes Geno Smith has sent in his direction, and there's no DK Metcalf in this one. So not a bad stat to know. There is some confidence with Noah Fant, but he is behind Otton. He's behind Njoku. He's behind Bowers, and he is way behind Kincaid over on FanDuel. So that's most of my list there at tight ends. So you got any others?
I will throw out Sam Laporta, similar to what I was saying with Amon-Ra. No Jameson Williams. I do think it is a running game. David Montgomery is by far my favorite play on the Lions side of the football, but I do want exposure to what I think is one of, if not the best offenses in the league, in a game that they could easily put up 28 plus points. And we talked about DeAndre Hopkins. After this week, gone are the days of seeing sub 5K DeAndre Hopkins. Now that he's on the Chiefs and he's going to do well today, et cetera, et cetera. 4,800 Sam Laporta. I want to be there before the explosion game happens. And I think on a slate like today with no Jameson Williams, I think they really do try to get their guy going. We saw even Khalif Raymond doing better than Sam Laporta the last 2 weeks. I think this is a game where they can easily afford to not have Sam Laporta blocking whatsoever, and that he does get in the end zone on National Tight End Day.
Sammy Laporta,
4,800 on DraftKings. I mean, this was a guy that was every single week 6 to 6,500 last year. So, I mean, I get it. He's had a slow start out of the gate, but it's just one of the most potent offenses in the league where they have Amon-Ra, they have Jameson, they have Laporta, they have the 2-headed monster in the backfield. Like, it's just what it is. There's going to be guys that don't have very strong outputs week to week. I mean, that's just what it is. And Sam Laporta has gotten off to a slow start, but I do think that this is a game that he can certainly make a difference at 4,800 on DraftKings.
5 minutes left. I think we answered most of the questions in the chat. If y'all have more, you better throw them in now. So I'm about done. I'm about to go win $1 million. That's what I want to try and do today. Hey, let's go over quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. There's only 2 of us today. So one or two guys you got. Let's do one quarterback. We can do two RBs, two wide receivers, and a tight end. That sounds pretty good to me. I'll let you kick it off with quarterback. I know who you're going to say, so I will pivot.
I'm taking Caleb Williams.
Yep. Caleb Williams sounds pretty good to me. That's who I would prefer as well. Oh, see, now I put myself in a position. I have a Jameis Winston team. So, and the other one's probably going to be Caleb Williams. But if you're looking for maybe a lower owned guy that could go off, Jalen Hurts, because I think he's lower owned today, right? No one's spinning up at
Yeah,
quarterback.
most people are paying down at quarterback. Jameis is probably going to be one of the most popular quarterbacks on the slate, and the other is a guy that we actually didn't mention, which was Tua. We talked a lot about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and A-Chain and all the skill position players, but I mean, if you don't like Caleb Williams at 6K on DraftKings, you don't have to find a ton of cash to be able to pivot to Tua. If you rather go there, he's only 6,100, and I think he's 7,000 or 7,100 on FanDuel. It's the same type of scenario where Caleb is 7K on FanDuel, and I think Tua is like 100 or $200 more than him on both sites. So
RB, maybe we don't need to give two, maybe just our favorite play. It's close. Give me Kareem Hunt over on DraftKings.
yeah, that's what it was going to be for me too. I think that whole 5.5 to 6.5K range, a lot of guys that we mentioned. If I only have to pick one, you said Kareem Hunt. I'll go Javonte Williams at 6K there on DraftKings.
Wide receiver.
We got to lock Tyreek Hill. That's just automatic.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot of Tyreek Hill, and then I don't know, a guy that's just not completely obvious, maybe. A guy that I think is going to exceed value is DeAndre Hopkins. So I'll just throw that out there just so I'm not rattling off the highest price guys on the slate.
Yeah, with all the value, I'm playing a lot of high price wide receivers. So I'm trying to see my exposures, who I have in the mid range. This one's easy. Both of them are the same price on DraftKings. In the mid range, we talked a lot about high range and value. So I'll go two mid range guys here. Same price. Take your pick between Devonta Smith and DJ Moore.
Do you like Smith over AJ Brown?
No, I have more AJ Brown, but I just didn't want to rattle off Jamar Chase. I have a lot of builds where I have three elite wide receivers in there with a punt maybe as my flex type thing. But on both sides, I have a lot of elite wide receivers. I think that's where it's at today. These 20 to 30 point outputs from the wide receivers are going to make or break the slate.
Yep.
So that's the type of build that I'm going with today. But if you are living and dying in the mid range just to get different, I think Devonta Smith and DJ Moore would be my two guys there.
I'll also throw JSN as my mid-range wide receiver there. Love the matchup for him.
Yeah.
Hope the weather holds up. Tight end, I'm playing K. Dotton.
Yeah,
easy.
I'm playing K. Dotton the most. In terms of exposure, it goes K. Dotton, Noah Fant, and Laporta Komet are tied. Mostly forcing in an overpriced Komet with Caleb stacks here and there in a 150, but yeah, the top two by far are K. Dotton and Noah Fant.
You gonna do a worst play of the slate kind of thing?
We could start that. I like that.
Worst play of the slate. I don't have anyone in mind.
I feel like we're setting ourselves up to get clipped here. Old takes exposed type thing. I kind of like it.
Worst play of the slate. Who is that going to be? I mean, I don't really know the ownership, just to be honest here.
All right, let's check what I had last time. Give me a sec. What was the last update? So we got Tyreek Otten, Breece Hall, Devon A-Chain, Javonte Williams.
I'll say out of those, I'll say Breece Hall.
That was my guy too.
Okay.
I think if there's one, and I'm hoping that's the case because I have zero. I think for me, there's no need to go Breece Hall. If anything, we didn't even mention this guy at the running back position because I'm only playing him on the late slate, and I didn't want to talk about a million guys. But if I'm going up away from that 5.5 to 6.5K range on a running back, I'm taking Kenneth Walker over Breece Hall today.
Oh yeah, I would too.
100%. I'm taking Kenneth Walker over Breece Hall, and
Yeah.
it may bite me, but that's where it's at for me.
All right, quick questions that just came in. Who do you guys like for defense? Spinning up, give me the Broncos, give me the Lions, and I love spinning up for defense, so that's where I'm at. You got any ones you want to throw in there?
I'll just a little cliff note on why I'm playing the Ravens over the Broncos. Do the Broncos allow less points today? Absolutely. I don't think Carolina scores a touchdown. Do the Ravens get scored on? Maybe a touchdown or two. Does Jameis throw an interception or two or three with a pick six? I think it's yes to all the above to that. So I will play for upside there and hope that the Ravens get a defensive touchdown.
Double tight end day. Last question we're taking.
Yeah, I actually forced that in a couple times. Even did it on FanDuel. I think it's, it's the writing's on the wall for that. You're going to see FanDuel and DraftKings posting their, all the tight ends that scored yesterday, et cetera. All those tweets are going to come out tomorrow morning. We know George Kittle's getting in the box tonight. I do think Auden scores a touchdown today. I think Noah Fant scores a touchdown today. I think Sam Laporta scores twice today. I think Sam Laporta scores twice today.
I gotta go make a Laporta team. I don't have one yet. I'm glad we did the show.
That'll be our golf team. We'll make it together. Since we didn't have it, we both said we didn't have a golf team.
Okay.
So we'll make a golf Laporta team.
All right, let's do it. Let's collude. I thought that's what you were asking me to do for a second. We'll split it. Just kidding. Wouldn't do that. People have asked. I don't do that. I don't want to do that.
No, I don't want to
pay your taxes.
No.
So anyways, all right, that's the end of the show. Come on over to the Win Daily Discord, windailysports.com, promo code Sicko. That's S, that's I, that's C, that's K, that's O, 50% off over there. Use it in the little promo box to get in. I saw some people signing up last night. That's a good deal. I think we're going to have a huge day, man. I really do. I feel cool, calm, collected about this. Most of my teams are done already, so I'm going to go, I don't know, maybe go for a nice walk and listen to some Sirius XM and get caught up. But we'll catch everyone next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.